Mr. Earl, we have you for 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate the testimony. I'm new to this committee, and I must say that the testimony is forthright. I'm learning some things that always room to learn, and I appreciate it. So I'm going to direct my first question to you, Mr. Laprette. And I'll capsule it as I like to do in what I heard. And what I heard from the very beginning of your testimony, you made this comparative to the size of the CAF to that of certain divisions of the U.S. military. Of course, population of the United States compared to Canada, size of their economy compared to Canada. But your comments were impactful. I'll say that to you. But I believe later in your testimony, you talked about the importance of relying on Europe, or if I could qualify it to be reciprocity, whereas we would do things with them along the lines of critical minerals, they would do things for us, allies and friends. Can you talk to us in a little bit more detail of what you actually meant by that particular comment?
So this is a very dangerous time for Canadian sovereignty. I'm spending a lot of time in Europe working with European colleagues on various defense issues. There's a lot of anticipation, expectation in terms of what Canada can and will deliver for Europe on all the things that we've talked about, in particular supply chain security and the like. The risk is that if Canada does not deliver, Europe is big enough to figure out a way to go it alone and to get it from elsewhere. And that means Canada would lose its most important ally in terms of partnering with Europe to offset the vagaries of U.S. unilateralism, which we have used Europe to counterbalance for 100 years. And so the risk here is that we will find ourselves very isolated in the world with very few friends and partners because nobody takes us seriously in terms of the commitments that we make, and that our only option will be to draw even closer to the United States. So this is very much about investing in a strategy that indeed balances our commitments and our friends. But that most important point of counterbalance is ultimately with Europe. But as you also heard, the third option, this is going back to 1971. We need to figure out the relationship with Europe if we think we've become too interdependent on the US. And certainly our European allies all believe they've become too interdependent on the United States as well. Look at, for instance, technology. And look at the payoff this can yield, right? So 23 to 25% of US GDP is generated by high tech. In Canada, it's under 6%. In Europe, it's 9%. So these investments are also about upping our game in terms of our national prosperity. And we can directly track when we started to divest from defense investment, from defense in this country, and how that correlates with our national prosperity and our GDP.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving us the thesis of the complication of where we are, and I think we all know, and we hear it so often, that geography has made us neighbors with the United States and has made us strong allies. Listening to you talk about the importance of that relationship with Europe, can you go a little deeper for us in your idea, as it relates to the DIS in particular, because that's really what we're studying, strategies that we can deploy or employ that would bring us closer in that relationship with the Europeans? And is some of that similar to the strategy that we had with the United States, notwithstanding geography?
At the end of World War II, I mean, we decided, so look, there was only one country in North America that was there at the beginning of World War I and World War II. So it's not unusual for the United States to be a little bit late to the party. And what would the world have looked like if Canada hadn't helped to hold down that island off the coast of Europe from which we ultimately launched the D-Day invasion, right? So this is how we played ahead. And we decided the world that we had in the first half of the 20th century is not the world that we wanted to live in. We invested in the instruments of statecraft, in international institutions, in building a prosperous, stable, and secure post-World War II system. I would say that strategy was so successful that it has made North America the most secure, prosperous, and stable continent that history has ever known. No wonder so many people from around the world want to come here. What I'm worried about is that as Canadians, we have lost our ways and our vision for how we got to the country that we have today and how we make sure we sustain the country that we all love and that so much of the world adores.
Thank you. And at the risk of sounding contentious, I just want to say don't forget Newfoundland. I'm a proud Newfoundlander and Labradorian, and our great contribution during that as our own independent country. Thank you.
Well said, Mr. Earl.